Hey, I get it, you're staring at that rack of equipment, and the power strip down the aisle just isn't cutting it. Maybe you've seen a few of those cheap 8-outlet strips wobbling on the floor, and you're wondering if splurging on a Rackmount PDU is really worth the extra cash. You've probably heard the buzz about Metered-by-Outlet and remote monitoring, but you're not sure what those actually mean when you're trying to keep your home lab or small office server room humming without surprise shutdowns. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's break it down together. The CyberPower PDU81008 is a 2U rack mount unit that offers 16 front-facing outlets, each of which you can switch on or off individually and also read power usage for. On paper, that sounds like a dream for anyone who needs to keep an eye on server power draw, especially when you're running a few network switches, NAS, and maybe a low-end VM host. The key question, though, is whether those features actually help you avoid the dreaded "my router just rebooted and everything went down" scenario, or if you'll end up paying for a fancy switch that you never really use. First, who should consider this PDU? If you've got a true rack setup, meaning you've already allocated 2U of space for networking gear and you've got a managed power line coming from your UPS, this unit makes sense. The ability to remotely monitor each outlet's voltage and current can be a lifesaver for a small IT team that needs to verify that a newly added switch isn't drawing more than it should. For example, I've seen a coworker who added a PO camera system to a rack. The moment the cameras started pulling real power, the bandwidth on the network dropped. By using a Metered-by-Outlet PDU, they could see the exact draw on the camera's outlet and throttle it without taking the whole rack offline. That kind of granular control is what separates a nice-to-have from a must-have for anyone managing multiple devices on a single circuit. Conversely, if you're just pulling a single server or a couple of network devices off the floor and plugging them into a wall-mounted strip, you probably don't need this level of granularity. The PDU is 200-240V and rated for 30A, but it's derated to 24A to stay within the safe operating range for most small to medium installations. That means if you accidentally load the unit beyond 24A, the internal protection will trip, potentially shutting down all 16 outlets, something you might not notice until you get a notification from the monitoring software. For a hobbyist who isn't using a UPS or a dedicated circuit, the risk of overload is real, and a simpler strip would suffice. Now, let's talk about the practical strengths. The first thing that jumps out when you mount the unit is the front panel layout. 16 outlets are spaced nicely, and each one has a small LED that shows whether it's on or off. The switches are tactile enough that you can flip them without having to pull a tool, which is handy if you're in a cramped rack and need to shut down a device quickly. The real power comes from the Metered-by-Outlet monitoring. Using CyberPower's power panel software, you get a live feed that shows you amps, volts, and watts per outlet. In a real-world scenario, imagine you're running a test lab for a new web app, and you notice your server's power draw spikes to 12A during a stress test. With this PDU, you can instantly see which outlet is the culprit, confirm whether the spike is within acceptable limits, and decide if you need to spread the load across another PDU or upgrade your cooling. That immediate feedback can prevent hardware from overheating before a fire alarm even thinks to go off. Another strength is the remote monitoring capability. The unit includes an Ethernet port that talks to your local network, letting you pull the same data into your existing monitoring dashboards, whether that's PRTG, Grafana, or even a simple email alert. If your office is out of sight for a few hours, you get a push notification the moment an outlet draws more than a threshold you set. For a small business that can't afford a dedicated IT staff, that kind of automated guardrail is priceless. It also means you can power cycle a single outlet from your phone, which is far more elegant than pulling a cable when you're at home. On the flip side, there are a few trade-offs that can bite you if you're not aware of them. The unit doesn't have an LCD screen on the front. All you get are the LED indicators and the software interface, so if you're not comfortable with a web dashboard, you'll have to rely on the clicks to know the status. That can be a bit of a learning curve if you're used to the instant readout of a traditional PDU with a built-in display. Also, the unit only offers front mount outlets, there's no rear panel power inlet that you can use.